This is We Need to Talk with Dr. Darcy Sterling, where I give you the tools and skills you need to love better so you can live better. You know the drill. It's January, and everyone is still buzzing about their New Year's resolutions. Promises to hit the gym, eat healthier, maybe start dating with intention. But the reality is, by mid-February, nearly 80% of those resolutions are abandoned. Why? Because willpower alone cannot outmuscle unresolved emotional wounds. The patterns you can't seem to break, the procrastination, the self-sabotage, maybe overcommitting, they are all often rooted in emotional triggers tied to unhealed pain. And until you address those triggers, goal setting can feel like pushing a boulder uphill. Today, we're diving into the emotional baggage that holds us back from creating meaningful change. If you have ever felt stuck in a cycle of failed resolutions or wondered why you can't seem to follow through on your goals, this episode is for you. Here with lots of questions is the niece you have grown to love, Ashton Tardif.
Why do you think so many people focus on external goals like fitness or productivity rather than addressing the underlying emotional issues that were holding them back in the first place?
First of all, until you've repeatedly set a goal for yourself and failed to reach it, you'd never even know that the reason could be tied to something deeper. And most of us need to fail several times before we would even be open to looking within. And the reason why people tend to focus on external goals like fitness or productivity is because they're tangible. You can point to it and hang a coat on it. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's not an endless, nebulous, vague goal. Setting a goal to go to the gym or get organized, it feels so actionable and measurable. And then the people in your life are likely to support and reinforce it.
So, why wouldn't willpower or motivation work when it comes to reaching a goal? Why is that not enough?
I love this question. It's so important that people understand willpower and motivation are emotions, and all emotions come and go. No emotion is going to last forever, good or bad. And so willpower and motivation, they're not reliable fuel sources. You're not always going to be able to access either of those feelings. The most successful people aren't the ones with the most willpower. They're also not the people who are the most disciplined. They're people who set up their lives so that they don't have to employ discipline every time they turn a corner. So if they're nutritionally successful, the food in their homes are the foods that they allow themselves to eat. They don't keep shit in the house that would tempt them to deviate from their meal plans. So sticking to their nutritional goals is easier because they are not constantly having to make healthy choices because the majority of options in their home are healthy. And it's the same for people who are athletically successful. They have trainers or they have workout partners or groups that help hold them accountable for showing up. When you know that willpower isn't a fuel source that you can rely on, you can prepare yourself for those moments or days when you really won't want to do the thing that you've committed to doing. Reaching your goals becomes so much easier when you accept that on the occasion when you can tap into willpower, those are moments that are rare and they're to be cherished, but they can't be relied on. And your ability to tap into motivation, it actually becomes more difficult as time goes on. And there's a very logical reason why. So there are two primary motivations that humans have: the desire to seek pleasure and the desire to avoid pain. If you're motivated to pursue pleasure, then as you get closer to achieving your goal, the novelty and the intensity of the anticipation decreases because the reward feels within reach and it reduces the high that fuels your motivation. There's actually a principle in behavioral psychology called the hedonic adaptation, where people acclimate to the positive emotions associated with progress, and then the pleasure becomes less stimulating over time. Now, if you're motivated to avoid pain, it's a little more obvious why getting closer to your goal would diminish your motivation. So take weight loss, for instance. Say your goal is to lose 10 pounds. Taking 5 of those pounds off makes a difference in how much pain or discomfort you feel. So you're naturally going to want to take your foot off the gas as you get closer to your weight loss goal. And that's why you can't rely on willpower or motivation or wanting to do the things that will bring you closer to your goal. You actually should plan for not wanting to do those tasks that would bring you closer to your goal and figure out what you're going to do instead to make yourself do it when you don't want to do it. That's the best preparation you could have for a goal is, okay, right now I'm really enthusiastic about this goal. That is going to go away. How do I get myself to do the thing that I need to do to reach the goal when I don't want to feel that way? But instead, most people come at it from the opposite perspective. They feel motivation now and they're like, this is the time in my life. This is going to be the time that I can really hit it hard because I feel this intense passion. But that's just a moment. You cannot rely on it. If you rely on it, you're fucked.
So it sounds like it needs to be like kind of a larger strategy in general versus just a one-pronged approach.
Yes, for sure.
That makes sense. So, what are some examples of someone having difficulty reaching a goal that might point to an emotional wound versus just like an external desire? Like, for example, we all want to make more money, most of us.
Not me. I'm loaded. I got it all.
Same. This is, I work because I'm passionate about a 9 to 5.
I'm so loaded. I'm wearing your jacket today.
Sharing is caring.
Yeah, this is a really hard thing to answer because there are so many things. These are gross generalizations. This is not diagnostic. So I'm going to give you 3 of the big reasons why people have trouble reaching a goal that could point to something deeper. So take a procrastinator. I call this the procrastination trap. Let's just say that your goal is to get in shape, but every time you plan to go to the gym, you find something else to do. Clean your room, you scroll through your phone, I don't know, you organize a playlist. Procrastinators often have a serious fear of failure. They've had negative experiences with failure in the past, and maybe they've received harsh criticism or felt humiliated when they weren't successful. And then what happens is, as adults, they unconsciously internalize the messages that they got from others when they were younger. And now it's no longer about what others are going to think of them if they fail. Just knowing that they didn't succeed is intolerable to them. So they don't even try. So it's an internalized sense of judgment. It's not fear that other people are going to judge me. It's, if I know I fail, I find it intolerable. And what I want to also say is that all of these root causes, if you're listening to this and you're like, well, that doesn't necessarily land because, like, I don't have any clear memories of being humiliated as a child or as a younger person, and I don't consciously find the fear of failure to be intolerable. I want you to know that all of these explanations are unconscious. So you're actually not going to be aware of the root causes. The idea is to chew on these concepts. There's just 2 more that we're going to roll through and see which, if any, resonate with you over time, because the whole essence of something that's unconscious is that it's outside of our awareness. And all of these root causes are going to be unconscious. The second category is the self-saboteur. So you start eating healthy and exercising for a few weeks, but once you see some progress, you begin rewarding yourself with junk food and you skip your workouts. Then you feel guilty and you want to quit altogether because you feel like it's out of reach. You're not going to do it. The root cause of this is it's an unconscious feeling of inadequacy, and it's usually rooted in childhood experiences where unconditional love or validation was missing. So people who struggle with this and are in this category tend to set very small and safe goals to avoid exposing themselves to perceived inadequacies. They often struggle with a belief that any success is due to luck or external factors. And it feels very much like a deep-rooted sense of insecurity or like an internal dialogue of like, well, why bother? What's the point anyway? It's not going to happen.
Mhm.
And we all have felt some level of each of these. I certainly have. And we all know people who struggle with this, people who have such potential, but they don't ever pull the trigger. And
Mhm.
then the last category are the people pleasers. This is an easy one to recognize, and I'll tell you why in a few minutes. But people pleasers, let's just say, for example, the person wants to start a YouTube channel. But every time they think about it, they're imagining people either not watching their videos or laughing at them or leaving mean comments or not getting the engagement or the results that they're looking for. So you would tell yourself, if this is something you struggle with, that it's not worth it and you drop the idea entirely. And the hesitation is often tied to a fear of outward judgment or rejection. Maybe in the past you were teased or ridiculed for trying something new or standing out, and now your whole goal is to kind of float under the radar, and so you avoid taking risks to protect yourself. It's a protective mechanism. People who struggle with this are often riddled with anxiety, not constant anxiety, but the root of it is anxiety and an internal dialogue of like, well, what are people going to think? They're going to think that I'm either a failure, they're going to think I'm weird, they're going to think I'm audacious for even attempting this, they're going to think I'm not right for doing this. I feel like this last category is one that most people can really relate to.
Yeah, for sure. Um, and again, I think a lot of this is fear-based. We're scared to fail. We're scared what people will think of us, or we're scared we're not good enough. And it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, in my opinion, if that is all the thoughts in your brain and that's what keeps cropping up for you. So, what is the solution for people who are stuck in these cycles of failed resolutions?
So it's going to be twofold on for each category. And the general rule I will say is that you have to make peace with discomfort. And I
Mm.
say that as somebody who does not like discomfort and really likes predictability and certainty and excellence. And you know this, and our core listeners know this, but it can really get in my way. A lot of these concerns can really get in my way. The way I bypass this, because on the surface, people would look at me and be like, well, you do crazy things at every decade of your life, which I do. Um, the wrestling match that goes on internally with myself that I have to go through to get out of my own fucking way to do the things that I do, it's pretty epic. And people don't see it. I don't really talk about it. The first rule is that you have to be comfortable or make peace with being uncomfortable. You're not going to be comfortable with discomfort.
Mhm.
Discomfort is uncomfortable. And for some of us, it's bordering on intolerable. So it's all going to be uncomfortable. And all of this is going to be some version of exposure therapy. But I'm
And
going to give
growth.
you, but I'm going to give you little twists on how you can play little mind games with yourself that might make each of these more tolerable. So, starting with the procrastinator, focus on progress and not on perfection. And what I mean by this is chunk down your goals into small, itsy bitsy steps. If your goal is to lose weight, you have to chunk it into the smallest little increments. 5 pounds at a time, and there should be some reward as you hit each of those milestones. And this way, you break the cycle of thinking that, like, the end goal is the only purpose to this. Maybe you say to yourself, instead of the goal being about the end result at the end, it's just, I have to work out for an hour, or I have to work out, I have to do like at least 10 push ups. Chunk it down to the smallest thing that seems reasonable. Sometimes I'll start a task and I'll say to myself, knowing full well that I'm playing mind games with myself, I'll say, I only have to do it for 10 minutes. I can stop after 10 minutes, and I'll set an alarm that tells me
Mhm.
you can stop after 10 minutes. Well, as soon as I get momentum, I'm willing to do it. And again, the reason that works is because smaller tasks makes it easier to take action without having the pressure of being perfect.
especially if
Or,
you have ADHD. I just wanted to
oh my
say,
God, yes.
because
Yes.
this is also a topic that is extremely challenging for people like us who struggle with ADHD, along with every other day to day task and responsibility. But go on.
Right. So for the self-saboteur, the workaround that I see for this is to keep a small wins journal. And basically, every day, write down one thing you did to move towards your goal. It could either be something you did or didn't do. So if you're trying not to eat a certain kind of food, or you're trying not to be sedentary and sitting all day long, then talk about, hey, I made sure that I went for a walk during lunch, or I made sure that, I chose water over soda, or I took the stairs instead of the elevator. And this works because tracking little wins on a daily basis helps build evidence that you can succeed. And it slowly begins to change the belief that you're not good enough because you're mounting evidence to the contrary, that you are, in fact, totally good enough. It's
Mhm.
about really, really finding smaller ways to do things. And then for the people pleaser, um, here you have to align your goals with your values. So you're going to have to measure your values. I'll put a link in our show notes to the quiz that I've talked about ad nauseum for the last year. It's an evidence based instrument that will give you your top strengths. Your top strengths wind up being your top values and principles. Once you have your top strengths, look at the first five. Those are really the ones that I want you to plug into. And then what you want to do is you want to connect one of your values to your goal. So, for example, if your goal is start that YouTube channel, tie it to creativity or self expression. Then remind yourself why it matters to you, not what others might think. The whole point here is that the person who struggles with this particular issue has a habit of looking outward instead of inward. So when
Mhm.
your goal is rooted in what you actually care about, other people's opinions feel less important. So if they don't weigh in on your videos, if they don't watch your videos, if you're not getting the engagement that everybody hopes for whenever they publish anything on social media, then you're redirecting your attention to yourself, and that the purpose of doing this is not for them, but to be plugged into your values and principles.
And I think there's more power and authenticity that comes from you when you do that. And I think that speaks volumes. It's always apparent to me when I can tell that someone's doing something or saying something because they genuinely want to say it or do it. And I think people can kind of pick up on that, especially nowadays where everyone has a platform that they can use. So how can other factors come to play here, like relationships and those dynamics? So family members, romantic relationships, influence from your friends. How does that kind of play a role in someone's ability to set and achieve the goals?
Your relationships are so important to your ability to reach your goals. They are so influential. Your ability to set and achieve goals is so tied to the core people in your life who can either create a supportive foundation for you or they can introduce barriers to your goals. And here's how they can influence goal achievement. You could either have a partner who celebrates small wins and can reinforce your persistence, or just the opposite. You can have a partner who diminishes them, who questions them, who ignores them, makes you question why you even have the goal. Same goes for family members. Family members who express a belief in your abilities can instill confidence. If I believe you, Ashton, can do something, you're more likely to believe you can do it.
And it's true. And there's factual evidence of that. And anytime I feel like I can't do something, I remind myself that you believe that I can, or whoever else has instilled in me. Like, well, if they think that I can, why can't I?
And so if you don't have supportive people in your life, like most people are not going to be outright douchebags and denigrate a goal that you might have.
Mhm.
Most people know that they should not do that, and they don't behave that way. That said, plenty of people find covert and quiet
Yeah.
ways of
Passive
doing that.
aggressive. Yeah.
Exactly. So if you have people in your life who kind of raise an eyebrow, which I can't do with my Botox, because I
I
can
don't
I?
think I can either. Oh, I can. Oh,
Um,
that's sad.
uh, if you have someone in your life who like raises an eyebrow at your goal of like, I'm going to go back to college and I'm going to get my associate's degree, and they raise an eyebrow at you as if like, who do you think you are? But they don't say the words. That is an unsupportive person in your life. And so if these are the kinds of people that you have in your life, or if they're neutral at best, maybe they're not cheerleaders, you can and you should find support in joining a group or looking for an action partner who you can meet with weekly to share your challenges and successes. There are ways to find like minded people everywhere today, particularly
Mhm.
with social media. So it's not all bad.
Right.
Use social media, use Meetup, find like minded people who are interested in doing the same thing as you. I wrote a 90,000 word book by meeting weekly with a writing partner for a year. And again, that's an example of how I took on a large project and I said to myself, you only have to write 1 hour a week and you're going to
Mhm.
hang out with your really good friend who you love every week. And that's going to be the person you write with. And you don't have to do any more than that. And of course, that created momentum in me.
Don't you think there's something to be said for those people who do raise an eyebrow or for whoever doubts your ability to transmute that into added motivation to succeed? Because if you're just getting peppered with support and positive energy, it can almost not inspire you as much as the ability to prove someone wrong.
Nothing inspires me more than someone who tells me I can't do it.
So that's why I wanted to
Nothing.
bring this up because I know people and tinge of myself included where I'm just like, you know what? Not only am I going to do it, I'm going to do it even better than I thought I was going to do it just to prove you wrong and to prove myself even better.
Yeah.
Is
I
that
know
bad?
no, I know that about you and I do love that about you. I have heard you weigh in on my life in moments of my life um where I remember when I got the my first show and it was shortly after my divorce and I'll never forget what you said. Do you remember what you said to me?
I don't, but please do tell.
You said, and it's in an email, you were like, "What a bitch slap this will be to to him." And I thought to myself, "Well, that's not the reason I wanted to do this, but hey, bonuses."
Sure helps.
Yeah, it really did. I'll never forget that you said that. I don't think it's bad. I think that we have to use whatever natural inclinations we have to help us bridge the gap between where we are and where we want to be. And if the way you do that is by proving everyone who didn't think you could do it wrong, well then fucking do it.
Yeah.
That's what I want you to do. It's about taking each of our idiosyncrasies or the different ways that we work and making those things work for us. It's
Yeah.
easier for me to do with a person because I'm not in, because it's hard to do for yourself because you can't always drill down on these things yourself.
Hmm.
But it is easy for me to do this with other people. Having a shitty support system is absolutely a roadblock to goal completion, but it does not have to be the determination of success. You just have to look outside of the people that you are around the most for support. And honestly, sometimes you make a friend in the process. So it
Hmm.
can really be a win win.
I love that actually. So, how can someone identify whether they're setting goals to meet their own needs or to please others? So we can analyze one of my goals for this new year. So one of my goals is to eat healthier. And historically, this would have been tied to a body image or a weight loss thing. But I'm actually quite happy with my body. This is purely from a health standpoint and trying to be more mindful of my habits. Achieving this, though, there's always kind of two little, an angel and a devil on my shoulder. And it took some time for me to realize why I wanted to achieve this goal. And I may not even realize why I overarchingly want to achieve this goal. Part of it may be rooted in fear of gaining weight. Another part of it may be authentic and like, oh, I genuinely want to be healthy for myself and how I feel.
So, how to figure out which of those is your motivator? Because truthfully, you're going to be more successful if you can tie it to yourself more than others. It's just the way it works. So, what I would say is, I over Virgo things, Ashton. So, did you happen to keep a food journal for any period of time before you started this goal?
I did. But that was during
Ooh.
but listen, that was during times where I was trying to actively lose weight. I was so unhappy with myself, and it became a source of shame.
I'm not talking about historically, have you kept a food journal? I'm like
Oh,
last week, last month, have you kept a recent food
oh,
journal? Because if the goal is to eat healthier, we have to know what your baseline is. So, do we know? We don't want to have the subjective sense that you're improving over time.
right.
Ideally, you want to have a comparison. And the best way to have a comparison is to know what your general eating habits were before the goal.
Yeah. Well, for me personally, I knew that my lifestyle habits were influencing my diet and my health. So one way that I have implemented trying to reinforce this goal is grocery shopping and buying food that I knew would not only be fulfilling and sustaining for my body and financially throughout the week. I was thinking longer term. I'm a busy New Yorker. I'm stressed. I work all the time. I was falling into traps of grabbing a breakfast sandwich from the bodega on the
Mhm.
way to work every
Yep.
morning, ordering in food, or just buying quick microwavable meals. And it wasn't even the fact that I was eating like inherently horrible foods, but they weren't great. It was that I was making obstacles for myself because when I come home from work, the last thing I want to do is, oh, what am I going to make for dinner? Oh, there's
Mhm.
not much. I'm just going to order something quick, fast, and cheap. But ever since I implemented this, I've noticed it this week. I have consistently had a nutritious, healthy breakfast every single morning because I set myself up for that to be a possibility.
So we're answering the question, how do we know if our goal is for ourselves or if it's tied to pleasing others? So using this as an example, why do you want to eat healthier?
This just popped into my brain another thing. So I want to eat healthier so I can feel better. For those who don't know, I do have type 1 diabetes. So food and being healthy is especially like an important topic that I need to take more into consideration. I am a very baseline healthy person, but I want to stay that way. I'm still in my 20s. I know that what I do now will affect me later. Um, Also, like my partner made a comment to me and he was like, I want you to be healthier for you. He was noticing when I was skipping meals or when I was eating too late or what did you eat today and things like that. And he was like, listen, health is so important and I want you to care more about that for you. And he made sure to say this has nothing to do with your body and how I do or don't perceive it. It's like he cares so much about it and he wants me to be the healthiest version of myself. And I finally realized at one point, why don't I want that for myself right now?
So back to answering the question, why do you want
And
to
I
feel
realized
better?
that I want to be proud of what I invest in my health. I feel like I don't approach food from a healthy perspective. I've always viewed it as like good food, bad food in the sense of gaining weight, losing weight. And
Mhm.
I've completely lost track of how food can fuel your brain, your body, the roles that it play outside of your weight. Like I have quite literally not thought of food that way, maybe ever. And I wasn't setting myself up for success. I was getting brain fog. I was not getting enough protein. It's I want to feel better. That's what it is. I want to feel better.
So you want to feel more cognitively on, is that right?
And nourished. I don't know. I don't think I am or have been nourishing my body correctly. Like, yes, I'm eating, but what am I
I would
eating?
I would absolutely agree that, but your mom and I would both vote yes. You have not been eating as healthy as you could be,
Right.
because you've been a normal young person your whole life, and the insulin covers the food choices that you make that wouldn't be ideal. And everybody knew that that was going to be your life, and that at some point, everybody hoped that you would decide that you wanted to make healthier food choices. So again, you want to eat better so you can feel better, so you can nurture yourself.
Yes.
Why? Why?
Why do I want to feel better?
Why do you want to, yeah, and why do you want to nurture yourself?
I haven't prioritized it. Now that I'm in a weight category and I have the body that I am comfortable with and that I like, I have to understand and teach myself that health is different internally versus externally. And this may not be like this forever. I may not look like this forever. I want to set myself up for success down the road. You are what you eat. And there's so many other benefits like your skin, your hair, like just so many things that I would always be like, that's fine. It doesn't affect me. But it very well could down the road. And I just want to implement it as a habit. So I'm not in my late 30s and kind of like a disorganized eater. And I don't
Hmm.
have a sense of like what I should do. And I know what to do. I do. I just have gotten away with for a long time not doing it and
Hmm.
blaming it on things. Work stress, time, whatever.
Money.
Money. Yeah. I've actually been spending more money by not doing
Eh,
this.
Oh,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. I was like, oh, I'll just, I'll eat a breakfast sandwich for $7 from the bodega and that will get me through the rest of the day till dinner.
And so that winds up being more than what it would cost you to have like oat cereal in the
Yeah.
morning or
Groceries.
something.
I can buy
Yeah.
rice cakes for $4, a ton of them, avocado, hard boiled eggs. That gets me through over a week.
Okay.
$6
I
a
don't.
day adds up.
So, for the listeners, you ask yourself repeatedly, why do you want to accomplish your goal? Your first answer is going to be a starting point. So, why do you want to eat healthier? Well, because I want to feel better. So, whatever that answer is, you ask again. And why does that matter? And why does that matter? And why does that matter? You keep asking yourself that question each time you have an answer until there is literally nowhere else to go with your answers. You're literally drilling down on the origin of the goal, and that is your answer to who am I doing this for? Another way to figure it out is to ask yourself, what would happen if no one knew about this goal? Like, imagine achieving the goal, but no one ever finds out.
Mm.
Would it still be meaningful and worthwhile? And if the answer is no, it might indicate that the goal is more about pleasing others than fulfilling your own needs. That this one reminded me a little bit of like, um, you say to the philanthropist, why do you want to donate to charity? Well, I want to help people. Okay, how would you feel if the building didn't have your name on it? Would you
Mm.
still donate that money?
Mm.
Um, again, it's like, what happens if nobody knows that you're eating healthier? Because you're going to get a lot of positive reinforcement in part because you have diabetes, type 1 diabetes, and we've all been very aware of and, concerned
I
about
know
your
it's going to
health.
please people too. I know it's going to please you. It's going to please my partner. It's going to please my mom. It's going to even please some of my friends. So it's like, I think I still need to figure out too, like, am I doing that? What majority of me is doing this for me and just so they can feel at rest?
Well, I would love to feel at rest with your food choices for the
I mean, I
record.
just want to be clear. I don't eat like fast food every single week. Like I sound like
No, you don't. You don't.
I don't. I
So,
truly don't.
and you don't sound like somebody who's like living off of McDonald's.
Literally.
You don't sound like that
Okay, great.
whatsoever. You
That's
sound
not
like
the
you're
case.
just a normal young adult who has been eating the way first a teenager eats and then a young adult eats, and that is not the way a type 1 diabetic should be eating. but we knew that you were going to have to go through some normal stages of life and hopefully arrive at this place. Um, at first blush, it seems to me like your motivation is a hybrid of external and internal. Um, and so, as long as it's not all about other people, as
Right.
long as some of it is for you, then you're likely to have the sustainable fuel source that you need to reach the goal. I don't like relying on other people as my motivation because
You can't. You really can't. I mean,
most of us can't. It doesn't matter who you're surrounded by. I'm surrounded by very loving people. I'm so lucky to have you in my life and to have, you know, the girls in my life and to have my wife and our family in my life. I'm so grateful for that. But if I relied on cheerleaders to reach my goals, first of all, everybody thinks of me as the cheerleader. So nobody's actually blowing steam up my skirt saying, "You can do it, Darcy," because they think Darcy does it, you know? Right? Like people aren't saying, "Hey, did you do the thing you wanted to do today?" They just assume I'm doing it,
yeah,
or that
I
I
feel
don't
that way
need,
too. Yeah.
or that I don't need to hear that. So if I were to rely on my loved ones, of which again I'm very grateful for my tribe, I'd be screwed because people think I have the intrinsic motivation to get shit done. So if I do want to get shit done, I do need to create all these workarounds to work around my own proclivities, my own laziness, my own limiting beliefs, and to ensure that the motivation is mostly intrinsic and not so external.
So on a less I don't want to say positive, but a less go getter, like you can do anything shift. What are some red flags that indicate a goal might be unrealistic or misaligned with someone's true priorities? And like, for example, I had a friend who told me that her goal is to pack her schedule from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. every night. And it was just chock full with the most insane things day in, day out. And she showed it to me and I wanted to be supportive, but I was like, this is unrealistic. And I felt misaligned with the overarching goal. What are red flags that like people can identify if that's the case?
Well, for sure, that what you just described sounds crazy to me.
It,
Definitely sounds like a Virgo did it. I don't know, but
no, but
interesting because a
yeah.
Virgo would know that that's unachievable, and
And
we
that it,
achieve our goals. We achieve our goals, so we would never set a goal that lofty. So here are the things: the goal is vague or undefined. Maybe it conflicts with your core values. Um, it's rooted in comparison. There's a lack of resources or support. Um, Unrealistic goals often ignore very practical limitations, like the one you just described, like time, energy, money, skills.
Mhm.
Setting a goal to train for a marathon with no running experience, a busy schedule, and just 3 months out from the New York City Marathon, that is going to set you up for failure. You have to look at the realities of what you have at your disposal. And packing your schedule from 5 a.m. till 10 p.m. I would say that this friend should just pack her head with positive podcasts because she's probably just trying to get out of her own head. She's trying to do many positive things and it's impossible. She can just get out of her own internal dialogue by listening to this podcast and others that are good. That's just like 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. That sounds like something. Listen, I'm going to piss your friend off. It sounds like something someone 12 years old decides they're going to do. Has this person had life experience? This is
well,
crazy.
to be fair, there are days where that might be possible, but you can't do it every day. You can't. You can't meet and check off all of your boxes every single day. Your energy is going to be different each day. You just don't have the bandwidth. You need to be realistic and set yourself up for success.
You can have it all, just not all at once. That is
Right.
the bottom line. So you have to prioritize the things that you want And maybe the second tier of goals that you want to accomplish happen in 3 months, but they can't all happen at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to have a clear why behind any goal that you set. If you don't have a clear why, that right there, that is your fuel source.
Mm.
And you're going to lose steam. So you have to be realistic about what you're actually capable of doing, actually capable of accomplishing. I would be worried that the friend of yours that you just described, who I've alienated, and I'm sorry for that, has set themselves up to fail. Like how do you achieve
Crash
that?
and burn. So this like is a perfect segue to the next question. So like, can you explain what the importance is of revisiting and revising our goals throughout the year? And how do we go about that in a way that doesn't feel like failure? Because to some people, having to pivot feels like failure.
Well, revisiting it doesn't mean that you're going to pivot necessarily. It's just identifying a date by when you are going to check in with your progress on a goal. If you don't have a date by when you expect to either evaluate, revisit, or achieve your goal, you don't really have a goal. You have a wish, and wishes
Mm.
rarely come true without a strategy. Reviewing your goal gives you an opportunity to recognize how far you've come, and it can also allow you to revise your strategy if you're not making the progress that you're hoping to make. So it's not about needing to pivot, although sure. I mean, you know, going back to the example of your friend who wants the what is that, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 6, 7,
She
8,
wants
9,
to
10,
wake
12,
up by
13,
5 to
14,
be,
15,
yeah.
16. That's a 17-hour day. Okay. I mean, you're talking to someone who's done a lot of stupid, overworking behaviors in her life. And I don't know that I've done that. Well, I certainly never woke up at 5 a.m. Sometimes I'd go to sleep
Not
at
by
5 a.m.
choice.
Yeah, for sure. Not by choice at all. Look, all of my clients have therapy goals that they're working towards and a date by when we're going to evaluate it, the progress. I am aware of that goal in every session, and I am doing a mental calculation of the likelihood that we're going to reach that goal. And I'm evaluating, is there progress week to week? Because if there's not, I got to shift the homework assignments. It means the homework assignments are shitty or ineffective, or it means that the goal might be shitty or ineffective, or the timing is not right. Maybe it needs to be chunked down. We don't have to achieve every goal that we have all at once. To achieve 50% of a lofty goal or any goal is still pretty amazing. And you can
Yeah.
do that, but you have to get on the fucking scale to know if you're losing weight. And checking in on your goals is literally like stepping on the scale. You need to see how you're progressing. And only then can you change your strategy, change the goal, or pivot and celebrate your success, because it really has to be about the proximity of getting closer to the goal and not just the final destination.
So, what advice would you give to listeners who are feeling discouraged after years or even months of trying to make changes, but finding themselves falling short?
Falling short doesn't mean that you're incapable. It means that the strategy that you used didn't work. What I just said was sometimes my homework assignments suck, or they're great for some people and they're not for others. Sometimes my goals are a little out of alignment for my clients. Um, Instead of asking yourself, why can't I do this? Ask, what can I learn from this experience? What have I learned? And then begin breaking your goal, your larger goal, into smaller, more manageable steps. Like success, it builds on momentum. And doing small things, having small wins, it reignites your confidence. So instead of measuring success solely by whether or not you've achieved the end goal, we have to find ways of celebrating progress and consistency, because
Mhm.
just sticking to a goal for a number of months is very, very impressive.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I think you just want to make sure that you're not failing because of one of the big three reasons that we talked about earlier. Ask yourself, are there fears or limiting beliefs that are holding me back from taking some of the action that I need to be taking? Am I self-sabotaging to avoid discomfort or the risk of failure? You have to ask yourself some hard questions. And you can only do that if you check in with yourself and you see whether or not you've been making any progress. Goals cannot be a zero-sum game. They have to be about incremental progress. And if you can see goals as an opportunity to learn about yourself or learn a new thing in trying a new thing, then there's value with every step of your progress. It's not just
Mhm.
about hitting the finish line.
And I think that something that I've worked on too that I found is helpful, and I catch myself doing this now, is even if I'm not where I want to be, but I've made progress, I take a minute and I congratulate myself. I give myself grace. And I'm like, you know what? Good job, Ashton. You didn't have to do this today, but you did it. You didn't want to do it, but you did it. We're not where you want to be, but we're slowly getting there. It's like hold space for yourself. Give yourself grace. Like I literally have to look in the mirror sometimes and be like, good job. You did the best that
I,
you could today. I can't rely on other people to tell me a good job for my personal goals all the time. Um, so you have to also be, I feel like, your own cheerleader because you have to want to root for yourself.
you
Um,
do. You absolutely do. Because if everything is tied to other people's willingness to
right.
stand up and give you applause, it's not a reliable fuel source. We need reliable fuel sources.
Mm-hmm. Don't wait to be proud until you've accomplished your goal in totality. Like, keep
Oh,
yourself going.
they take so long to achieve. Real meaningful goals often take months or years to
Mm-hmm.
achieve. And, there's not a hardcore beginning, middle, and end to them that is visible to everyone. So you
Right.
have to reward the little tasks that you do to reach the goals. Those are wins, and we should celebrate them.
Here's to January. Here's to a new year.
Here's to this new year that we find ourselves in.
Oh,
Would you
yes.
please read us out?
We Need to Talk with Dr. Darcy Sterling is a Sterling Standard production. Editing and sound engineering by Bart Miguel. Our theme music is by Trending Music. Special thanks to Amanda Christiani and Preston Smith. If you know someone who has a New Year's resolution, show some support and share this episode with them so they're more likely to reach their goal. We'll be back on Tuesday with another episode packed with the relationship, dating, and mental health hacks you've come to expect.
Thank you, Ashton.
Thank you.